Welcome in, everybody. We're back live again. We're here at the RDT here tonight. One of our Orioles guys who everybody knows. One of the personalities of the fan base, that's for sure. Eric, thanks for taking some time to jump on with us tonight.
Of course, of course. I appreciate you throwing this together.
Definitely, definitely. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things tonight. One being a controversial topic. Some other ones just, it's just some general baseball talk to kind of lighten the mood afterwards. But we'll probably start with the first one here. There's absolute pandemonium going on in Baltimore. So Eric, can you kind of bring us in on this?
Yeah, are you want to talk about Elias power bombing Rubenstein through the table, or I
Yeah, I
know
mean, whatever you've heard out of the castle or out of the warehouse, let me know.
I know they had the Orioles had their holiday party last night at the aquarium, so I heard that Elias again was dunking Dave's head in the in the piranha tank. It got very ugly. Dolphins were medevaced out. It was not a good scene there. But no, I mean,
Oh, man.
again, this article that came out, I don't even know if you can as someone who's written a lot of bad blogs and articles, I saw this immediately and was like, this is just was it pitcher list, I think.
Pitchers list. Usually a pretty credible place to get some information from, which is
But
kind of why all this was pretty surprising.
and I've seen it before. Again, I don't read it regularly, but like when I saw it, I was like, this doesn't seem like the kind of thing that they publish, or like it's up their alley. Like they're not into news breaking or like sources tell me this. It's more just analytical stuff or numbers and breakdown and stuff like that. So that's why I was kind of like, what is this? I'd never heard of the guy who wrote it. No offense to him. Again, I'm missing a lot of stuff now online. But I was like, I don't know who he is. Like I've never heard of him. I had never heard of the other guy who like runs the website or whatever. But I mean, if you read through it pretty clearly, like this doesn't none of this adds up. Like you in no way, no sport or place or team is an owner being like, spend my money, and the owner and the GM is like, no,
No.
brother,
Yeah.
there's gonna be way too much pressure on me, and that's why I'm not gonna do this. That GM would be fired immediately. Like what
Yeah.
none of that story made sense at all. And like sources tell me, or not sources, I'm sorry, source tells me, because I saw that he was on Reddit too, and he was telling everyone about his source and stuff like that. And it's like, if you only have one source, you don't have a source. Like, you again,
Right.
there's a whole lot of more ethics and journalism stuff that if you read through this article, it was just like, okay, none of this is adding up. The dots are not connecting.
Yeah, I
So
loved
I
it
don't know.
when it
Again,
said,
I was thrown off immediately. I was like, I'm not taking this. I'm not believing this at all. Again, people can believe it if they want. That's perfectly fine. Maybe bits and pieces and like tiny things are true. But like you and I were talking about, if it's true, then I think it's like it was this big and it's taken it. They've just
yeah.
ran with it, and they made a mountain out of a molehill. And again, unwilling to spend despite green light from owner. That is such like word salad jargon. It just
Yeah.
it does not add up. So
I think my favorite line in the entire article was the ownership group didn't know what they were getting into.
yeah,
A bunch of millionaires and billionaires didn't do their research to know what they were getting into with the Baltimore Orioles.
a group that includes Cal Ripken Jr. as well,
Right,
being
right.
like, oh shit, oh that's what this. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, I've been hoodwinked. Yep, there we go. They got us
yeah,
again. Like a guy like
yeah.
David Rubenstein, and again, all the loops that you have to jump through, or the hoops that you have to jump through to like own a team. It's like, oh, this came out of, this really surprised him. This came out of nowhere. It's crazy. It's legitimately crazy talk. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. One of the things that I also laughed at too, and then you might be able to shed some light on this, is the Soto quote that they had a chance to acquire Soto. And I'll give my little piece on it real quick. Mike Elias showed that he was not giving up Jackson Holiday. And they were going to, if it was even remotely true, they were going to ask for Jackson Holiday.
Oh yeah, but again, like his whole thing being like he wouldn't trade for Soto. How does he not do that? Like he's disobeying the owner. And then whatever it was, and then I don't know how long it was, because Soto, that would have been the trade from I guess that was at the
From
same
San
time because
Diego.
then he goes out and he trades for Corbin Burns, and it's like, what are you talking about that he's disobeying the owner by not going out and spending like and not trading for him? Like, you know how many teams were probably like, no, we're not going to trade for a year, of Juan Soto because again, if Mike Elias would have done that and traded Jackson and Kobe and Heston and Beavers and DL, and all these guys. And then Soto walks at the end of the year, they'd be like, "Look at this guy's an idiot. What is he doing? I can't
Yeah.
believe he would do this." That's exactly what would have
Yeah.
happened. So, but again, for him to be like he's disobeying, John Angelos at the time by not trading for Soto and then making the trade for Burns, it's like your point right there is there's already a hole in it. Like that doesn't make any sense. So,
Right. Right. And Corbin Burns, typically you're going to give up more to acquire a starting pitcher, especially if
mhm.
Burns is caliber. So I didn't, when I started even just like the first line of that article, I was just like, yeah, this is dumb. Like you could tell it was potentially a disgruntled employee. There's been some turnover in the organization between coaches, front office, scouts. Um, I could see this being their opinion, right? And like you said earlier, this is a guy that typically just does analytics and now just ran with some story. He was reached out to and provided a story. And that's probably the only reason why this story was even written. It's not
Mhm.
like this guy probably went out looking for someone, for some kind of source to write this kind of story, unless he has a personal vendetta against Mike Elias. I don't know. But the whole thing was just it was fun. It drew a lot of traction to his page on Twitter. I mean, he's definitely he can afford rent this month. That's for
I
sure.
said I
You know?
said maybe just, a little 2 weeks before Christmas bump, that's but I cuz I said that and someone's like, "Well, he doesn't have a check mark." And I was like, "Maybe he's just doing it for the love of the game then." Who knows? I don't know,
Well,
but
every time you click on the article, he's getting money
that's
generated from clicks on the article.
that's true. That's true. But yeah, I get
Probably
it.
more than
I'm with you too. It's not like he sat down on a Tuesday night and was like, "All right, what do I write tonight? Let's do this." But I
yeah.
again, I mean, I don't know. I just like you said, a disgruntled employee, maybe I could see it, and someone being like, "And here's another thing he did," and again, that guy being upset and mad and kind of exaggerating, but I don't think to any degree that any of that is close to being true. Like I
Yeah.
can't you just can't wrap your mind around anything like that happening. Like him being like I can't it just doesn't make any sense at all.
To
Nothing
me,
about it makes sense.
they were trying to take their shot at Mike Elias, but they also and probably not even trying to made the entire front office look bad. Made Rubenstein look bad, made Cal look bad. Like you basically said that nobody had accountability and Elias was a running wild ship. Like
Mhm.
you took shots at a lot of people there with that kind of statement.
Yeah, and again, with an ownership group that includes all those people, like you act like Cal, I'm sure has known Elias for year, probably going back to 2018, 2019 or whatever when they, and even though he wasn't with the team per se, I'm sure that they had asked the Angelos family respects Cal a lot. So I'm sure that they would reach out to him for baseball stuff and all that. So it's not like again, if Cal is like, yeah, he completely fooled us in that interview, and he never told or he told us that he was going to do this or he wasn't going to do this. Like that's just not what happens in businesses like this. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen. Like so or GM being like, I'm not going to make that move because then there's more pressure on me. It's like when there would be more pressure if you're not making moves. Like it's just again, I don't know what the heck triggered it, but nothing about the stories made sense. Like that's not a thing that somebody who has gotten to that level would do. You don't get to be the GM of a baseball team and then be like, no, 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 I'm not gonna do it. It's like how Brian Flores kind of like messed his career up in the NFL by not, going against the owner. It's exactly what this guy is saying that Mike Elias is doing. It's just that does not happen, not in baseball. Like it's
Right.
just it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again,
Do
if
you
that
think
happens, say it is all true, and whatever happens, Elias gets fired or his contract runs out. No one's gonna hire him after that. Like why would he do
exactly.
that? And then it's like, Mike, why did you do it? The pressure, man. Like I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't want the expectations. Like you think that's a thing that a guy who has worked his ass off to get where he is? Like, no, come on, man. You got to think about it.
Yeah. Same with Sig. Like Sig wouldn't let that
Yeah,
happen. He's been around too long.
no. No, and like again, they're like this. Like if you think Mike Elias was like a lone wolf and acting, like this guy is like, yeah, it's all Mike's plan. Like, yeah, him and Sig busted their ass for years and years and years just to get here, and then he's like, no, I'm just gonna sit in the stands and eat chicken tenders and have
Right.
no pressure put on me at all. Like, no, that's not how this works. It's not how
Yeah.
business works.
Do you think he's deserving of some of the backlash right now, not signing one of the big three? Or do you think that they really stuck to their analytics and are going to pay based on what their future analytics are showing so they don't waste money?
I mean, I think it's both. I definitely think that they're, I mean, they kind of deserve some of the flack that they're getting. Not like the whole 9 yards where the guy, I forget who it was. And I like the account. Again, it's like Orioles fans' thoughts, I think. But or if I'm wrong, I apologize. Being like, and this is more about Rubenstein, like, oh, he has until opening day to make moves. If not, then he's the same as John Angelos. Like that was a crazy statement. But no, I think it's both. I think Elias from the front office do deserve some flack because I mean, we all heard the liftoff comment, what, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and we're
Yeah.
like, okay, nice. This is, and then we hear that, Rubenstein is buying the Magna Carta because he wants to, and money is not a thing anymore, and he wants to speed up the World Series process. And we're like foaming at the mouth, like, oh my God, when the winter meetings come, this is gonna be so fun. And then it's like, okay, like obviously we're never gonna get Soto.
It
Snell
was so
happens,
slow
what,
this year.
yeah, yeah, and again, it was Snell on Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
Soto the day before, or the day before the winter meetings, and then, that was
And
kind
then
of it.
free.
And then Fried signed in like the mayhem, kind of like cloudiness, fogginess period after the Soto thing, but that was
Yeah.
it. And like they were never gonna get Fried, not if not for 8 years. That's like 8 years for a 30-year-old pitcher. It's crazy. And again, I would have wanted him for 4 or 5, or do 8 with like an opt out after 4. That would have been fine. But
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants that contract 8 years. Um, but yeah, and so I think they do deserve some of the flack, but I also think that they're holding true to their guns, being like, listen, the last 3 years of this deal is going to be bad, or this and that, and here's why the analytics don't support this. So I get it. They're sticking to their guns, but I tweeted. I said I've been as frustrated as anyone. Like I'm not going to sit here and lash out and call for Mike Elias' job or post his address or bad mouth. Like I want them to do well. Like we all want them to do well. That's why I don't understand like the I hate Mike Elias. I hate him. Like
Yeah.
we should be supporting him. Just again, we want everything to go well. Like, but yeah, I'm very pro Elias, but it's getting hard to be like, it's okay, we'll wait, we can wait. And obviously the Burns trade came in January. The Chris Tillman, Adam Jones trade came in February. Like things
Yep.
obviously can happen. It just sucks when we were, sitting at the winter meetings being like, oh, maybe they can make a splash. And,
Yeah.
Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sanchez, 2 days before the winter meetings don't really count as a splash, I would say. But it's, yeah. So
You know,
I think he definitely, the whole front office deserves some of the flack. So
I was real upset with Gary at first, like extremely
I,
upset.
I
And
saw
then
it.
I saw
I
and then I
saw it.
see Carson Kelly today,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, defensively, he's a very good catcher, but he's a terrible hitter. He gets 6.5 a year. So that really doesn't make the Sanchez signing look that bad anymore, because now you've got two catchers that have signed for 6.5. Now, Hishigawa or whatever. I'm sorry if I say that wrong.
Yeah.
He's got some pop, right?
Yeah.
He's deserving of 6.5, but Carson Kelly's probably not. So now the whole Sanchez thing doesn't look as terrible. It
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, I was just like, dude, market value 1.3, like this is brutal.
Yeah.
But it's starting to kind of come together. And maybe Mike has a better beat on things than we really know. Who knows?
Yeah, again, I mean, obviously, you have a different perspective of this than a lot of us because you've been in that world. Um, but again, I mean, Michael, again, say what you want about him, don't like him, whatever. The guy knows so much more about baseball than any of us ever will. Like, it's just that's the facts. Like, that's a true. You can hate him all you want, but he knows more than us. So, and again,
Yes.
they, the information they have and all that. I mean, again, yeah, Sanchez at 8.5 was kind of like, oh, that's, whew,
That's
it's a big
steep.
one. But, again, like I tweeted, I was like, I don't have the energy to argue over a backup catcher. I just don't. And then
Yeah.
and then Gary goes out and hits another home run and what is it, the Lido
Yeah.
league? And I was like, all right, there we
Yeah.
go, baby. We're back
I
now.
was
We're
watching
back.
that live and I was just like, it was making my blood boil even more. But I wanted to go back to one of your comments about the liftoff. Do you think Angelo's dying? And I think we kind of all expected John to be the guy that took over. Do you think the sale put a wrinkle into the liftoff? Because they couldn't spend, you can't really spend money when you're about to sell. You have to make everything look as profitable as possible without spending a dime. Do you think that really kind of put a wrinkle into liftoff?
Um, Maybe because that was what, 20 it's when they traded Trey, so that was the middle of
Was
22?
21?
22, I
22,
think,
was it?
right?
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so, because that was when Adley came up.
Yeah.
And they kinda made that mini little playoff run and, like, got to 500, and we were popping champagne and all that. So I think it was right. I think it was 22, middle. Yeah, because then 23 was the 101 and from there. Um, but yeah, I think so because, again, it's like you're about to change hands. Obviously, Peter had been in bad health for years. Um, but again, my guess is they kind of knew this is not gonna go on for a lot longer and probably for the better because, again, I'm sure it was not a fun end of his life for him or his family. Again, we hate all can hate John Angelos all he wants. I'm sure it was not a fun time for him the last year of his dad's life.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely think because, again, it's not just you, it's lawyers and it's paperwork and it's this and it's everything. I couldn't imagine the amount of stuff that goes into selling a pro sports team for as much as they did. It was crazy. But yeah, it's like you're
1.7
kind
billion.
of yeah, like it's a ton. Like you're handcuffed a lot because, like you said, everything has to look nice and perfect and neat, and it has to all add up and match up. And if it doesn't, then the sale's not going to go through, and
Yep.
then it's just more bad press. And I mean, because remember they tried to get the stadium stuff done, like December, of 22, was it? Yeah, it was. Think it was December 20. I can't remember. But they tried to get that all tied up and weren't able to do it, and that's when the state comptroller or whatever stepped in. So yeah, I definitely think I don't know how much it had to do, but I definitely think it had something to do with, like, the pause on everything because, again, if Angelos is like, "Listen, I'm about to get out, like, I don't know how much I can commit to doing this or that or whatever," but, yeah, I definitely think it had something to do with it.
Yeah, I almost look at it as like Angelos probably thought that he was the guy, and he probably had these plans to potentially spend money to make money, and then it was like the bombshell on him, like, "Hey, you're not taking over. We have to sell the team legally
Mhm.
because of taxes and all that other
Yeah.
crap that was all thrown into it." Like Rubenstein couldn't even finish the sale until the death certificate was signed. Like
Mhm.
there was so much wrapped up into that. And I really feel like that probably Mike may have said liftoff potentially a little too fast, only because I don't think anybody saw the sale coming. But
No, no, but I'm with you too. I think Elias got a little over his head with the comments and
yeah,
it probably I'm sure if he could go back in time that the liftoff wouldn't be the word that he would use and
yep.
he would use a different phrase. But yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on with that too. So and you talked about it that, like, I remember hearing, like, once Peter dies, obviously the team will go to John, and I don't know if Lou was even still, like, in the system.
They
I
were
don't
in
think
court, I
so.
think.
Yeah, and then they had settled out of court with the
Yeah,
mom and all that, and that was getting ugly. But the inheritance tax, which is what Mark Davis had to deal with when Al Davis died with the Raiders, it's like
mhm,
it's an insane amount of taxes. And I remember my buddy being like, even if John Angelos is saying, like, I'm not going to sell, because he said that I think in December of 22, and he's like,
he
I'm
did.
not selling, like, we're not doing this. And then 2 months later, the sale is going through. Um, but yeah, I think the inheritance tax probably scared him off because that is a lot of money that you do not want to have to pay. Like, I don't care who you are, how rich you are. Like Mark Davis and his bowl cut haircut, he can pay it. But I know they were not happy about having to pay that when it all happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, that again, I can't imagine the amount of stuff going on when you're making a sale of a
I
pro
want to
sports franchise.
say when I read it, it was almost $300 million in capital gains tax.
It doesn't make any sense to even, like, entertain being like, "You know what? Maybe I will pay." It's crazy. That is an insane
Yeah.
amount of money to someone not named Steve Cohen or Jeff Bezos or,
Right.
Elon or David Rubenstein. It's crazy that much money.
Because Angelos bought the Orioles for like $1 million, right?
It was like 1.3 or so. Yeah, it was like it
Right.
was not a lot. It was, I mean, everything
But
back then in the early
think
90s
about
was
that.
nothing, but yeah, crazy.
1.3, and now you're paying capital gains tax on 1.7 billion.
Yeah.
Like that's yeah. He
Mhm.
had to sell. He had to sell because
Yep.
then you probably had to split all that up, and with a brother and the mother and all that other
Mhm.
crap. Like he
Yeah, the
probably
lawyers would get involved, and it's a
yeah.
nightmare from there. So, and
Yep.
again, nothing was ever easy with the Angeloses, so I can only imagine
Right.
how that would go.
All right, I want to move on to the next topic here. What are your thoughts on bringing in some new coaches this year? You excited
I
about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime change, you switch stuff up. I think there's always reason to be excited. Obviously, it seemed like nobody wanted what was his name? Borgenschlag, which what was the guy's name? Him
I don't
and
remember.
the hitting coach from who went back to
Oh, the Twins?
yeah, Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So he
forget.
went back. I don't think the other one has gone anywhere yet, has he?
Fuller went to the White Sox. Yeah. He
That's
signed with
right,
the
White
White
Sox.
Sox.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Fuller was the one that, because I think the guy that left for the Twins was like let go. I think they said Fuller left for another position. And I think that was
Mhm.
also like a, hey, here's where we're gonna go. Feel free to start looking for other opportunities.
Right,
It was like something like that. He wasn't fired, but my guess is it was like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Go look for something. Update the resume.
right.
But I mean, bringing in elevating Cody Ashe. I think is big. Obviously, the one story I've held on to is he was the one who helped Jackson with the Otani toe tap in the that
Mhm.
Minnesota series. So and it is funny how what he hit like 600 in those 3 games and then couldn't get
Yeah.
in a bat in the playoffs, even with
Yeah.
the new toe tap.
Couldn't
Um,
even run.
yeah, exactly. Well, didn't have the chance. Nobody got on.
Yeah,
But with everybody, I mean, everybody loves Buck Britton. I'm
mhm.
a fan of his too. I'm not like there are people who are like Buck Britton will be the next great Orioles manager. I don't think I it's hard for me to be like, yeah, that's going to happen because this. But I'm excited by
Right.
him. I'm intrigued by him. I don't think bringing in a guy that the young guys, I I think bringing in a guy like that who the young guys know and they like and they've adapted to him and they know his style, that can't hurt. That definitely
Yeah.
cannot hurt. So that's a big one. Obviously, Robinson Chirinos. I talked about him on MLB Network. We roasted the guy when he was here, when he was hitting, and it sucked every time he got in a bat. And we're like, what are we doing? But it obviously seemed like he has some great relationship. I know when he came back, I think like when they played Texas this year, he was either in Texas or he came to the game up here, and like you would have thought it was like prime. I don't know, like some celebrity because everybody mobbed him and they loved him. But again, I think it's all good stuff. I think obviously you had to shake something up and move some stuff around. I think a lot of people want the team on the other side of the parking lot to do some stuff like that too. But
Yeah.
again,
I'm a big guy for that one.
I think this is a year that I think Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I don't think he's fired, but I think he steps down to spend some time with his family and do some media, wink,
Yeah.
wink, nudge, nudge. But
Mhm.
again, I mean, it's something had to happen. Freddie leaving was a little weird. I don't know if he was fired. They never really got down to that if he was fired or if he left on
They
his
didn't
own.
fire anybody, actually. When you looked at
Okay.
it, they all just mutually agreed to part ways, and
Yeah.
that kind of goes back to the whole issue of this live stream here is that's how Mike operates.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's really pissed off because they didn't just come out and say, "Oh, Freddie wasn't doing a good job, he's gone."
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Fuller wasn't doing a good job. No, it was we probably behind closed doors told these guys we were going to move in a different direction and here's your opportunity to go find something else. If you
Yep.
don't at this day, we're going to announce it. And I mean, Freddie might have retired for all that we know. The Orioles
Mm-hmm.
operate in so much silence.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally I'm intrigued by Tommy Joseph. I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people kind of like looked at him coming from Seattle and were like, "Oh, this guy sucks." But when you looked at so Seattle had already fired their 2 hitting coaches prior. When Edgar Martinez came in and those 2 worked together, Seattle was one of the best offenses to finish the year last year. So
Mhm.
I'm pretty excited to see what him and Cody played with each other in Philly.
Philly, right? Yeah.
They already have a very good relationship. So I'm really excited to see what those two do with young guys because they're younger themselves. They kind of know how to interact. Not that the other guys didn't, but they're still younger guys. They know how to kind of like talk to them and show them and speak their language. Same with
Yeah.
Buck Britton. They've been there with these guys. They know how to speak their language. I think that's going to play well for us down the stretch.
Absolutely. Again, like all the credit in the world to Freddie for everything he did. But again, it's like Freddie is an older guy. Like that's, and again,
Yeah.
someone who has been in a clubhouse very recently. All four of the, again, Ashy, Tommy Joseph, Buck Britton, obviously in the Norfolk, but Chirinos too. Like those guys are all, like he's freshly out of the league. Very very
Yep.
freshly. So I'm with you there. I think that's. And again, I forget who my buddy tweeted. I forget which one, but he said, bringing in guys that these players like openly love. Like I jokingly tweeted after Gunner's home run derby performance and Buck Britton's pitching performance. I said like Buck Britton will never be a manager for my team, never.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
and Nick Vespi tweeted me back and was like, "No, this guy's a beast. Like anybody will be lucky to have him." And I was like, "I'm just going off his batting practice pitching. Like that's
Yeah.
that's where I formed that opinion. Like nothing in the clubhouse or anything, but again, people just raved about them. And, I mean, not that it matters, but Buck won the AAA championship and he did well at Bowie and all that stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
fresh faces and all that. It was needed and I'm excited. It's a nice shakeup and we'll see what kind of happens from there.
Yeah. I actually spent the 2010 spring training with Buck Britton. And we were I always kind of like clung to him because I was a guy moving to the outfield, having to learn the position. He'd already been there a little bit. So I was kind of like, and he's a guy that it didn't matter who you were. You could be a guy taking his spot. He was there to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And he always kept it loose. But dude, when I tell you he was one of the most hard nosed dudes I've ever seen on a baseball field, like it didn't matter if you were a 6'10" catcher that was ready to railroad the guy coming down third. He was going to be right there, right up in your face too. Like
Mm-hmm.
every slide was hard. He hustled. I mean, and he manages like that too. And you can tell the guys feed off of that. So
Yep.
it's exciting to get that back in the dugout too. And I kind of expect this year to be he'll sit back and learn a little bit, but he still knows the guys enough to like, hey, get your ass down the line a little bit kind of thing. And then we'll start to see him grow a little bit. But it's exciting to have him on the staff for his sake and for the franchise's sake, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the day that Brendan Hyde was hired, I feel like everyone was like, "Well, Buck Britton's going to manage this team in 2022." Like, no, who cares? They're going to fire, they're going to fire him, and they're going to bring in Buck. So, again, people have been high on him, and like you said, I mean, he's been around Gunner, and he's been around Adley, and he's been around
Mm-hmm.
Westberg. Like, he knows, like you were saying, like he knows what makes these guys tick, and all
Yep.
those guys all play hard. And again, I don't think there's any coincidence that they all came up under him and they all played under him, and the COVID year being around the what is it, the instructional camp or whatever it was, that
Yeah.
the and Bowie. But yeah, I think you're right, and yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think he will kind of lay back in the shadows because it's not it's not his dugout anymore, but I think he can, again, knows what makes these guys tick, and can kind of get them to give them a little spark because hell, I mean, we all said it last year. This team needed a spark at times, and unfortunately, it took Heston Kjerstad getting smoked in the side of the head to for Hyde to show some. But I don't know. Maybe they'll be better this year at getting the guys to show. I wanted Gunner to snap a bat over his leg so bad, so bad. Like, give
Over
me
a
one
walk.
helmet slam from Adley. Just do something like, and it
Yeah.
just never happened. But I don't know. Maybe now we'll see that.
Do you think that was a byproduct of having a brand new owner and just not wanting to embarrass the organization his first year?
Um, no, I don't know. I've never thought about that. You know, I don't know. I don't think so because again, I think these guys are such just baseball. Like when they're on the field, they're so zoned in and dialed in. I don't
Yeah.
even know if they're thinking about that. Like even if Rubenstein's sitting 4 rows back, if Gunner's like, I kind of want to snap this right now, but David's over there looking at me like, you better not
Right,
snap
right,
that.
right,
That's a
right.
$300 bat, brother. No, I don't know. I don't know. I've never even thought about it. I wouldn't think so, But
Yeah.
it's a good point. It's definitely a good point, but I don't know.
I'll let you answer this one first.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're out on Cease. Like I've heard that they're not out as people think they are. I don't know how much, that's there's truth to that or not, but I think Corbin Burns, I think Burns ends up on the West Coast. That makes too much sense to me. Him going to the
Yeah.
Giants. But I don't know. I mean, Cease is. I saw your numbers that you tweeted out about him against like AL East or teams above 500. I think it was too. Those aren't great, but I don't know. I mean, a guy like him, I would love
He's
to
going to
try and
get a
get
lot of
him.
strikeouts, and he's going to get a lot of innings.
Mhm.
It's just, when is he going to fall apart, and is it going to be on a national stage against the Yankees in Sunday Night Baseball or something like that? That's what I'm afraid of. And then we kind of watch him in October kind of
Yeah.
stink too, and it's just it just keeps fitting the mold all the way down in his career. When it's really on the line, he's just not there.
Kind of sounds like Jack Flaherty. When you need
Yeah.
him in a big spot, you got piss running down your leg now, and I mean we all fell in love with Flaherty after the Toronto start in his first start, and we are like, oh my god, what a trade! This is awesome. And then Adam Jones
Yeah.
jersey night or retirement night, and can't get out of the second inning, or he throws a fit in San Diego and gets benched the next game.
That
Um,
was the right trade, in my opinion. They
oh,
needed
absolutely,
Jack was the guy
100%.
to acquire. It just didn't work
Yeah.
out.
He apparently he didn't want to be here, and I think he was
Yeah.
upset at being traded, and that's perfectly fine. Whatever, it happens. I've never been traded, so I can't speak to that. But I'd make that trade 10 times out of 10 still. I got
Yep.
no problem with that. But yeah, I mean, I would love to go and get Cease again. I think that's an aggressive move. I think the only thing I don't like about it is we're kind of running the same play as we did last year, where you're going to trade prospects for a guy on an expiring
Right.
contract, and who knows, that you can only do that so many times before it's like, all right, now you got to spend some money. Or
Yeah.
obviously, if they go out and trade for him, and they and then they extend him, sure, perfect. That makes it so much better. But it would be I think it would kind of be like Groundhog Day with a lot of people being like, maybe he does pitch to a 3.1 ERA and wins 15 games and strikes out 215. And then next offseason at the winter meetings, it's Dylan Cease is looking for 340 million or something like that.
Right.
John Heyman is like, oh, record breaking contract, Dylan Cease. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, okay, well, now we don't have, Fabian or Beavers or Bradford, whoever. So I don't know. I mean, I want him because he's a pitcher and I think the Orioles need some. So
Yeah.
I would make that a priority. Somebody like that. I would make that a priority. Framber?
So we'll move into the next talking point. When do you think we see, I don't know why Heston's on here, but when do you think we see some of the prospects here in 2025? Or do
I
we
think
see them at all?
Basalo, I don't think we see. I would be. I think I would be. Unless he's like a September call up, I would be shocked if we see Basalo. Um,
Yeah.
the timeline doesn't match up. He's. I mean, they seem to do the exact same thing with the call ups and like they call up. Like Gunner. The timeline that Gunner was on in Norfolk. It's like they bring him up and they give him a month and then I don't know. It seems like they're following that. So I could see Basalo doing that same thing. Kobe, if he's not traded, I mean, and it's so weird too because the infield's kind of set. I mean, all the position players are kind of set.
Yeah.
There's no real wiggle room. The only one that's like a question mark is Mateo, and if he starts the season, I don't think I'll say it right now. I don't think Mateo starts the season on. I think he starts on the IL. I think they want to give him plenty of time to rest. So I don't know if that buys Mayo um, some at bats up here, or maybe he starts out opening day up here and he's on the roster, and Westberg kind of moves around, but I think he'll definitely be up here. I'm sure he's going to perform and produce in AAA. And Heston, obviously, like you said, is kind of he's penciled in the right field right along with Tyler O'Neill. So he's a
Yeah.
guy. He hasn't shown me much of anything. Obviously, I mean the Grand Slam in Texas, and I don't mean to shit on the guy the day after he gets married. Congrats to the Kerstads. I'm very happy for you all. Um, but it's just like I don't. I'd pack his bags for him. If there was a trade, I would have no problem doing that and moving him. But he'll be up here. He'll get at bats, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope someone clips this and plays it back to me when he hits 34, 35 home runs, and it's like, look at this idiot, you know. But I don't. I mean, I think Mayo, obviously we see at some point next year. Basalo, I would be shocked
Yeah.
if
He's got a
his
lot to
plate
learn.
appearance, if it's 0.5, I'm taking the under. I'm hammering the under on at bats
Yeah.
for Basalo.
I think he might get the Jackson Holiday treatment where he comes up and gets his like 10 games, 8 to 10 games, and then they kind of send him back on his way just to say, like, this is the big league way. You probably just got hammered by pitching, but also like we saw this in your game. We saw this, while you're hitting, while you're catching, like go back and work on that. And we'll see you in 26 kind of thing. Jackson, I think only came back up because of injury, obviously. But that was probably the plan with him. And Basayo, a lot of people think he's going to be here this year. I don't expect to see him other than those 8 to 10 games. He's 21 years old. He has a lot to learn when it comes to handling a pitching staff at the upper levels and stuff. He played a good amount of games at first base too. So he really he's a good defensive catcher. He has an absolute bazooka behind the plate. He will control the running game. It's going to come down to in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning where you're getting pitcher, and you have Aaron Judge and Stanton, and you got to think on the fly, like what are you going to throw if this guy comes in? Like, what are you going to throw? You have to set all that up a batter ahead. And as a 21-year-old, it is so hard to learn. And they're not going to just throw him out there in the big leagues and say, hey, go learn it out here. He's going to spend a lot of time in AAA, in my opinion.
Go ahead. Yeah. Call this pitch with Aaron Judge on deck and Stanton standing right in front. Yeah. Like have fun with this, bro. In August when the Orioles are a game and a half back or something like that in Yankee Stadium with the crowd going nuts. Yeah. Like, again, I don't see that at all either. So yeah, I think I could see them doing what you said. And again, bringing him up for kind of a cup of coffee or, September and having him kind of just take it all in and be like, this is what it is. This is what it's like. You're going to struggle and you're going to do this and kind of go from there. So
now the two guys on the corners for the right guy, I'm making both of them available. Probably not in the same trade, but if a trade brought back a Jared Jones,
it's your guy. That's your guy.
Pick which one you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if there's somebody else out there for Luis Castillo, no.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. You wouldn't do it for Castillo?
No. Not with his declining numbers. People want to complain about Corbin Burns' declining numbers. Yeah. Take a look at Castillo's. The fastball's down almost 3 miles an hour the last 3 years. Like eventually this guy's going to be throwing 93. What is that going to do?
It's that heavy that heavy Pacific Northwest air,
It plays and their big ballpark plays, but you put him somewhere else, especially these tiny little AL East ballparks, and he's going to get demolished.
Yeah. July in New York. Have fun.
Right. It's just, but for the right guy, I would, and Ken Wyman tweeted it out earlier and I agree with it. At this point, I think we've gotten past, the Westberg, the Cowser, Basayo and Holiday. Teams know they're not getting them, but these two guys are still good enough. They're great prospects that can fetch you what you're finally ready to let go for. Hopefully.
I think you're right too. And again, I mean, you can't hold on to these guys forever and they've got to play somewhere. And we kind of saw that with the Norby trade. It's like Norby was never, ever, 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 ever going to play in Baltimore, consistent time if everyone is healthy. It was just never going to happen. So, same thing. These guys we're running out of space. Like you said, we saw, Mayo is one of the most powerful hitters in minor league baseball and can, that can easily translate to the big leagues, but the glove, I mean, we saw it, the glove, the throwing and from the people I talked to in Norfolk at first base, it was not good either. So like, people are like, again, you'll get a kick out of this too, because everyone's like, oh, just put him at first base. It's not slow pitch softball. You can't do that. You can't you don't hide a guy in Major League Baseball. You don't say, well, we'll put him in right field and pray. No, you cannot do that. You can't put a guy at first base and say, well, he hits well, that it does not work out. And so people would not like that, but everybody wanted it last year.
First base can actually lose baseball games.
Oh, yeah.
Because that bottom of the 7th inning where you could get out of the inning on a good pick, with guys at second and third now becomes a 1-run game. they can lose you a game. So it's not just, let me just put him on first base. Like, they've got to be good. It's Santander. I went back and looked at his numbers when we tried him there. I think it was 22.
Yep.
He hit 375 when he played in first base a couple games, but the defense was so bad they couldn't do it. Like, and it's a long-term thing that, I mean, he could probably potentially work on it all the time, but we were very lucky with Mountcastle and Chris Davis.
Davis was awesome. Awesome at first.
He was. And he was an outfielder, third baseman. And he was a closer in college. A lot of people don't know that. Like, he never played first before, but his hands were good enough. Same with Mountcastle. Mountcastle being a shortstop really helps, obviously.
Yeah.
But he played pretty much every position on the diamond. They were just trying to find him a spot. But Kobe's got a lot to learn. Got a lot to learn. A lot of it's footwork.
And again, this is, I mean, we said a lot of this about Mountcastle too, being like, you can't put him in, you know, he's not a left fielder, he's not a third baseman. What are we going to do with him? So again, it's not like set in stone that Kobe Mayo will always be a bad defender. It's not true, because again, we were having these, I don't think to this extreme, but we had these conversations about Mountcastle, and now he's, you know, what, back-to-back years Gold Glove finalist, and you can tell that guy's worked his ass off at first base, and
100%.
So again, Mayo, you know, another spring training with Mayo around him, I'm sure they'll give him more reps at first in spring training and stuff like that. I think that would be great for him. I think, you know, and same thing. I mean, you see it all the time on his Instagram. He went to the same high school as Anthony Rizzo. You know, Rizzo's a damn good, well, except for the World Series, he's a damn good first baseman. He is a very good first baseman. So again, you know, working out with him is awesome and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll say this too. I've been told by a couple people who are around the team that they think Tony could be your switch-handed right-handed first baseman if something happens to Mountcastle and he's moved in a trade, and then you have Santander and O'Hearn at first base, which you're obviously losing some defensive value there, but they were like, I think Santander could play well enough where you're not like, oh, this is crossing your fingers every time there's a, you know, gunner throws one across the diamond. So I don't know, but that's,
you know, what used to confuse the hell out of me was James McCann was actually a good first baseman. And he played it a lot. And I don't think we may have put him there one time. And I think it was against the Mets when we
like
came
a double
there,
switch or something.
Yeah.
Or like some weird.
He played like in Detroit and all. He played first base a couple of times and he played it well. And we never even tried. And I get it too, because you don't want to lose your catcher, right? I'm not even going to get into that, how we did that in the playoffs, because it blew my mind. But I understand it, but he was good enough in a pinch that you could have used him, especially when Mountcastle went down and was sick for a little while. But they didn't. I mean, you know, I don't know, whatever.
I didn't even think about trying to use McCann there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got some career games there. I do like this statement from Matt. We have a glutton of left-handed batters. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to trade one, trade Heston. And with Heston playing a position and being, I would say, above average, maybe to average, that value has to play into his value as much as just hitting for power. You can hit for power, and if you just boot the ball around, like, your value drops. So
you're Adam Dunn, like, you know, it's yeah, you're Giancarlo Stanton, you know, like you see it, like, I mean, he's a much better athlete. Well, he's faster than Stanton. Stanton's a hell of an athlete. I don't know if I'll say he's a better athlete.
So when I played with Stanton ran about a 4.3 40, not a 4.3. I'm sorry, he ran a 6.3 60. So he could move. We didn't test 40s back then, but he could move. Right? He had a full ride to Alabama to play tight end. A lot of people don't know that. Like, that was one of the best athletes, and then he just kept getting hurt and hurt and hurt. And now he can't even run, but he can still swing the shit out of the bat.
That's the thing. Who was it? There's an actor. What's his name? He was in 22 Jump Street. He's in what's that show? Oh, damn it. I'm awful at this. He went to high school with Stanton, and he said, I remember being like, if he's not in the NFL as a tight end, he's going to be in the NFL as a punter. And if he's not in the NFL as a punter, he's going to be in Major League Baseball breaking Barry Bonds home run records. And he's like, he has like there's three different paths he can take, and any single one of them is not bad. He was kicking like 80-yard punts. Like, if he wasn't scoring a touchdown, he was punting it away. And he was like, he's just an incredible athlete. So
yep. I'm actually trying to pull this up real quick. So let me see if this will let me save this image real quick. I got to show you this ball that Stanton hit one time. And it, dude, when I tell you that it was phenomenal,
I believe it.
where's
He
it
was what
at?
he
Where's
was
it
one of my
at?
favorite players to watch before he got to the Yankees. I loved him in with Miami.
All right. So can you see my cursor or no?
No, huh?
Okay. So let's see if can I zoom in? No. Anyway, so there's this long, like white thing here in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's a field kind of facing the other 6 fields or whatever.
Yep.
That field, where am I thinking of here? No, I'm sorry. The 2 in the back right, the one that's kind of like facing Roger Dean Stadium.
Yep.
So you see these like grade squares.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the batting tunnels. So on this field facing that batting tunnel was a spring training B game against the Orioles and Marlins. And Stanton hit one on the roof of this left gray building. It was over 550 feet, and he was
Jesus.
19 years old.
He's a freak.
The fences here were 405. So that
Good
tells you
God.
how much farther that was. It
Yeah,
was
that's insane.
ridiculous, dude. It was awesome to watch, honestly.
Oh, I bet. Of course. Yeah. He's awesome. I mean, again, Mayo has power, so does Kerstad. So I don't think
Yeah.
it's 550, but I don't know. Well, I got told our guy Brendan in the chat, he would tell me when Kerstad would like I think hit the scoreboard a couple times and hitting him on a Utah street and he's doing this and that. So again, we've seen it. We've heard about it. It's just it's he's kind of got it all put together, but the guy has some power. So there's no shortage of power in this lineup now, especially with O'Neill.
Yeah.
But it would be nice for one of those guys, if one of those guys, Kerstad or Mayo, if they're here and they're in the lineup again. Obviously, Kerstad has the upper hand there. But it would be nice to see them kind of show up and show out. I think we're kind of waiting on it. So
Same with Jackson.
yeah. Yeah, Jackson. Yeah, I think Jackson. I think we'll get a much better Jackson this year. I'm also buying all of the Adley stock. Anyone who wants to
Yeah.
sell, I will buy everything. I'm
Yeah.
taking it all in. So I think we got a big year for Adley.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say, like, if you don't re-sign Santana, how do you replace that production? Well, Adley's going to get healthier and better. Jackson, you would hope he gets better, right? As a top prospect. Westberg is healthy, right? So
Yep.
you're getting more production out of that. You move the fences in, so now you get a little bit more production, hopefully, out of Ryan Mountcastle. Cowser, being a good rookie, is going to learn things. He's going to make some adjustments. I feel like you're going to get a little bit more production out of him. I hope you hope Mullins carries over. He 286 in the second half. Like, you hope that carries over. So there's ways to do that if they can't re-sign Santana. His market, from what I seen today, the Yankees offered him 5 for 100.
And I
So
saw
he
MLB
would
trade
do that.
rumors said he's looking for 5.
Yeah,
5
so they
years.
offered 5 for 100, but he hasn't accepted it yet. And the same with Corbin. From what I've read with Corbin, is Toronto has gone to 250, and I think San Francisco is at around 200, but he wants to go to San Francisco, but he wants them to increase their offer, and they just haven't. I don't know if that really leaves Baltimore still in play. I mean, because think about it, 220 in Baltimore is more money than 220 in San Francisco.
Oh,
Their
absolutely.
taxes are terrible. I just don't know if he wants. I've said it a few times on my Twitter. It takes 2 to tango, and they have to want to be here. It's not all about money.
Yeah.
And I don't know if money is enough to bring Corbin Burns back.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that he's not signed yet, because again, you kind of figured like Fried got his. That was what, Tuesday? That's a long time ago now. You kind of would have thought, and look, Boris, he's out of the Soto's out of the way. He's not dealing with that anymore. Corbin is his, that's the big one now. So I'm kind of surprised that he is still out there. And I'm also surprised that, again, like a team like San Francisco would just, Posey has done such a good job since he's been there, and he seems like he is just awesome. But again, it's like him being a California guy and a West Coast guy, and they just built a house in Phoenix. And, when Corbin's flying, he's starting here on Monday, and then he's flying out there to be with his wife and the twins, and then he's flying back the day before his next start. It's like the Giants just make so much sense for him. I
Yeah.
almost would have thought that he would have been like, I'm all right. Give me 210, 210, and we'll call it a deal or something. But I don't
Right.
know. It's interesting that he's not signed yet. And I think the longer it goes on, obviously, I think that, maybe the Orioles can stay in there a little longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Toronto's had that money burning a hole in their pocket for 2 years now. So I'm shocked that they're not like 330 and let's call it a deal, like something like that.
I mean, with Toronto though, like when you look at it, if you're Corbin Burns, right, you're signing a long-term deal. They
Mhm.
can't even get it together with Bo and Vlad. Like, why
No.
would you want to spend your future there if they don't even know what they want to do with their two superstars?
Mhm. Yeah. And
That
again, their team, they've made the moves in the past. They got Barrios. They signed. They
Hoffman.
they signed Gosman for a lot more money than any other team had offered him. I was told by someone, the family member of someone on the Orioles, and they were like, the Gosmans were shocked at the offer, and they were like, "We have to." It was one of those like, we're gonna overpay, and they were like, "Oh my god, like yeah, like we don't even want to go to Toronto, but yeah, you can't say no to that kind of money." So
You have
again,
to because of their exchange rate, the tax rate,
yeah,
international tax rate.
hmm
It's a lot of money. So Toronto's in a position where they have to overpay a lot of players.
yeah,
Um, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm excited about this year. I know a lot of people think, the season's already over 1 week into the winter meetings, but I mean, there's a lot of baseball to play. Did the Yankees get better? Hell yeah. Did the Red Sox get better? Hell yeah. Like they did. But you know what? You still got to go out on the baseball field and play. Like we weren't expected to do anything in 2023 with the
mm
roster that we had. We know 101 games. Like just because you have names doesn't equate to wins. It
hmm
helps, but I don't know. I mean, I mean, our guys are good. I want to upgrade specific parts, mainly to the offense because I'm kind of tired of watching them suck when it matters. But I mean, that is what it is. I mean, they're young. I feel like they got their chance to prove that they could do it, and now they're looking to make moves.
yeah. I think you're right, and I forget what gambling site I was looking at, or it was tweeted out or tweeted at me or something. But I think they said, and this was like yesterday morning. So this was all the deals have been made, not the Devin Williams move. Um, or and I don't think the Red Sox did anything else, but it's like the most updated one, and it was like the Yankees over under was like 94 and a half. The Orioles were at 91, and I think the Red Sox were at 89. And it's like that, the Orioles won 91 last year. The Yankees won what, 94, 90. They won the division by, I think, by 3 games. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, just I understand why everyone's mad. I get it. I've been there before, but it's like this again. This is the off season is not over. Like just because the winter meetings are done doesn't mean you can't make trades and do this. Obviously, like things are
Mhm.
going to shut down next week because everything could just go silent from like Christmas
Well,
or the
now,
week of
honestly,
Christmas to yeah. Like I wouldn't expect anything big to get done. I'm also a jinx, so I'm sure that like Adley and Gunnar were just traded for someone. But I wouldn't expect anything significant really to get done between then
yeah.
because it's like you're working your normal job. Like let's just regroup after the holidays. That's what it all is. So
Yep.
I don't know. But again, I mean
Yep.
barring injury from any other team, Judge stayed healthy last year. He didn't the year before. Who knows, if that's going to happen again.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm not wishing injury on anyone, but it would be a real shame if Judge missed a month or something next year and Adley found a swing and Gunner's hitting 37, 38, 39 home runs again. So I don't know.
40, so
We'll
my
see.
boy Matt Trigger can get a steak.
I like that. I like that.
Yep. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up here. I appreciate everybody coming in and listening to what Eric and I had to say tonight, and we'll catch you guys later. Eric, you got want to shout anything out or anything?
Yeah, I'm the obnoxious, annoying guy on Twitter, tweeting way more than I should. So if if you see me or I'm not muted and not following me, shoot me a follow and we'll get you going. It's at EDITTI22. So
Cool.
I'm excited for I'm excited. I like texted my buddy the other day and I was just like out of nowhere. I was just like, I can't wait to be at Camden Yards with a beer. I can't wait.
I
Like
know.
we're still very far off, but I need it. I'm itching for it right now, so I'm excited.
And it's going to rain on opening day, but whatever. We'll
Oh,
be
of
there.
course. Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it. So
All right.